There, it waits. She waits. One vast mystery. A moving symphony. With rhythm, she progresses. Each wave with a unique sound. Another kink in the function of her grand design. Lingering upon the edge of the horizon, her anticipation never stops. Dreaming, she awaits the day that someone may search for the secrets that which lay concealed in her depths. We often overlook the most valuable of her possessions. We have not the patience to seek beyond the surface, to look deep enough, far enough, into even the darkest of depths. There, they wait. Her treasures, created in a narrative of injury, their value has so elegantly emerged. Wounded hearts glimmer with hope, and the thick black cannot dim their glow. There, they remain, awaiting the day where they might be rescued, restored, and their bondage broken. And so, a truth remains that the most beautiful of things come from the darkest, the deepest of places.
A few years ago, our eyes were opened to the issue of modern-day slavery, which is also known as human trafficking. And, when you start to realize what it looks like and how it plays out around the world, that it's, 5 miles from your front door and thousands of miles away and everywhere in between, it's overwhelming. It's children, it's adults, it's sex trafficking, it's labor, forced labor, and it's a huge issue. 27 million people enslaved in the world today. more than ever in the history of our world. It's hard to grasp, it's hard to understand, but the reality is the church has got to play a role in that. If we're called to stand up and speak up and to fight injustice, to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves, like it says in Isaiah, we've got to be the ones on the forefront leading the charge. And we actually partnered with Rescue One because we were connected with them through a series of ministry connections and immediately knew their heart and recognized their passion and saw that they were on the ground in Thailand doing something, not only to rescue children from human trafficking, but also to prevent them from becoming victims in the first place. Because all over the world, the children that become the victims are the ones that are the most vulnerable. So if you can step in and you can catch them before they become prey to those that would take advantage of them, you have the opportunity to make a huge difference.
They're not just the ambulance at the bottom of the hill that's dealing with the aftermath, but they're the fence at the top of the hill. They're trying to prevent these girls and these boys from ever getting into that world. And that's why we're so attached to them, because we want to be a part of that prevention piece as well.
Statistically, over 50% of Thailand's annual revenue comes from human trafficking. That's an incredible number. I mean, when you think about dollars and cents, but a majority of the people that travel there for that purpose come from Western countries. The ties of Thailand to the rest of the world in human trafficking are undeniable. And then the northern area of Thailand has actually been called the funnel. More people disappear from that area of the world than anywhere else. And I've heard that from multiple sources, and you think to yourself, why? And the reality is the culture, the poverty, it plays into this cycle that produces this. But it's the same cycle that exists all over the world. It exists here in the States, culturally, and issues with poverty, they produce this in every area of the world. And so our hope was that bringing the story of Thailand and sharing what's happening across the world would awaken people's hearts to what's happening down the street. Sometimes I can't see what's right in front of me unless someone opens my eyes, and that's the whole point of this documentary, is that people's eyes would be opened, but not just to Thailand and to India, to Africa, to America, to your state and your city and your neighborhood, because it's everywhere.
Thailand, home to lush rice fields, dense forests, and towering mountains. The horizon unfolds like a sanctuary of tranquility and beauty. The culture is as vibrant as the terrain. Vivid colors decorate the generous nationals like a painting. It is hard to believe that hidden behind the vibrant scenes and lush hills veils a secret that is embedded in over 1,000 years of poverty and inequality, and one that bonds over 1.5 million men, women, and children. Slavery. The process of trafficking in Thailand is one rooted in a system of tradition. Traffickers prowl northern communities seeking the vulnerable, the orphans, the young, the hungry, the abused, with promises of food, jobs, and opportunity flaunting from their fists. It does not take much convincing. With no understanding of their future, men, women, boys, and girls are sold and bought and transported to the dark rooms of their new concrete homes in Bangkok. Behind the neon lights and booming basses, restaurants and bars, they are enslaved. Bonded by debt, they are sold to clients from all over the world seeking pleasure for the night. A young woman will see anywhere from 5 to 15 clients in one evening being sold for less than the value of an animal. Rape and violence often keep their hinges subdued, and soon their voices become silent. Women and children are trafficked in Thailand alone. 30% of these victims are less than the age of 18. And 90% of these children are sold into the commercial sex trade. In this realm of the depths, hope is thin as darkness drips with the black of night. But it is here, in this place, where beauty survives, where it remains untouched, pure, dignified. It is here where we find our treasures.
Did you know that the butterfly can flap its wings up to 5 to 12 times a second and about 300 to 700 times in a minute? The freedom in flapping these beautiful wings propels it to fly and flutter through the air effortlessly, gracefully, beautifully. It is an amazing picture of what all God's children deserve. A life with the same freedom that embraces the butterfly. In a lost and often harsh world, unfortunately, this is not always the case. In fact, for some, it is not a possibility at all. Pim's story is too similar to so many others. Growing up in fear of her father, Pim fled the country of Laos with her mother to find a new life in the northern regions of Thailand. Like most refugees, at first, things felt good. Her mother was out of a stormy marriage, and the rain cloud of constant verbal abuse was now open to clear blue skies. But it didn't last long. Only time could unfold the harsh realities of the simple things in life: food, clothing, a roof over their heads. Unable to find work and pay the monthly rent, Pim's mother was left with a desperate decision. At just 9 years of age, a time when little girls dream about the beautiful women they aspire to become, Pim was sold to men during the night. At first, it was just a few, but the lucrative business venture grew when Pim's mother realized how much money could be earned. Enough to pay the month's rent. Enough to put food on the table. Enough to buy that pretty new dress for her little girl. But Pim quickly realized that a dress couldn't hide the ugliness she was feeling inside. Do you know what happens inside the chrysalis? Big, big things. The pupa grows 6 legs, a proboscis, an antenna, and wings form as strength emerges. It wouldn't be long before the caterpillar could burst out of its outer shell, only to emerge free and transformed. It so happens that Daniel and Lacey, founders and leaders of Rescue One Global, were doing risk assessments in the area where they stumbled upon little Pim, a young caterpillar looking for a glimpse of hope, of restoration. She became their first rescue. Released from her darkness, suddenly Pim had been given the chance to dream about what she really wanted, a heart that was truly free, to live again, to be a little girl again. Inside of Pim, big changes were happening. Vivid colors were starting to cover the brittle wounds. It wouldn't be long before she would have that chance to live free. Pim had found a home and a love, the unending love of Jesus. She was beginning to learn that her dreams of freedom weren't far from her new reality in the home of refuge. Did you know that after 10 to 15 days, the chrysalis breaks open and a brilliantly colored butterfly emerges? When a butterfly first breaks from the chrysalis, its wings are wet and crinkled. But after about an hour, they are straight, dry, and strong enough for the butterfly to flutter away, to embrace its freedom, its boundless freedom. Pim had found her freedom. As Daniel and Lacey's first rescue, her story would inspire the beginning of many to come. Pim had become determined to help others take flight. Now a leader in the home of refuge, she takes care of the girls that come through its doors just as she did. Pim gets them ready for school in the morning. When they are scared, she sleeps next to them and even shares her bed with them. She helps prepare meals, tutors the ones that need help with their homework, and laughs with them when they could use a smile. And most important of all, she loves them. Really loves them. The kind of love that only can come from someone who is free. Free indeed.
When I look at the flowers, I think of my mom. I remember how beautiful she was. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. I have not seen her in a long time, since the day she was taken. I remember how my father used to hit her. He used to yell at her and tell her that she was a horrible mother because she could not feed us. There were always so many bruises on her face. It made me angry because she was so beautiful. He used to hit me too. He would hit me and my brother so hard when he drank and was angry. I remember the night that we ran away. It was dark and I was afraid. But I felt safe with my mother. She said that she would protect us always. We ran into the mountains to live with my grandma, who would take care of us. She would feed us, give us a place to live, and protect us. The mountains were beautiful, the air was cool, and the flowers colorful, but there wasn't much food. Not enough food to feed me and my two brothers. I remember the day when the men came to take my mother away. She said they would take her into the city and that she would have a good job to help provide for us. She said she would be safe, but I knew she was lying. I had heard about what happens in the city. I had heard about the bright lights and the loud music. How when you look up, you couldn't even see the sky because there were so many buildings and signs. I had heard about the crowded streets and what happened to the girls at night. I remember picturing my mom in a dark room deep in one of those buildings as I lay awake at night. I wondered if she was allowed to take walks, what food she would eat, and if the men were mean to her. I wondered what number she would wear on her shoulder. I had heard that when girls were in the city were given a number, they would call it out like a name. It made me very sad because my mother had such a beautiful name. My grandma continued to struggle providing for my brothers and I. No one in the village would help us. My grandma would cut the grass for our neighbors with scissors, but it was still not enough. Sometimes she would talk about sending me to the city like my mother. It made me very afraid. because I did not want to be known by a number. My grandma soon heard of a home where young girls like me could not only be fed, but could be cared for without going to the city. I remember the day she took me to the rescue home, and how much the people there made me laugh and smile. They're my family now. My home, father, and mother. I'm no longer afraid of being abused or sent into the city. I've never felt so loved. My grandma and my brothers come and visit me often. We pray together and thank God that He has kept us safe. I still think of my mother. I do not know where she is, but I love her. I often draw pictures of her to remember how beautiful she was. She is. Her smile, her black hair, her brown eyes, and her soft skin. I pray for her every night that someday she could be rescued and protected like I am, that I might see her again and know she is safe. But until then, I will pray for her every night, my flower.
But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Luke 15, verse 20. Not everyone gets that chance, you know. A chance to be found. Especially if you don't have a father, or are just left with the memories of one. I remember my mom frantically ran, like the father in the story, when she heard the team was here. What a day it was. I didn't know them very well, but I knew I wanted to be a big brother to them. Their father had died a year ago, unexpectedly. And Mom, she was gone too, disappearing into the night. With no parents to guide them, Mao, 17, was left to care for her younger 14-year-old sister, all by herself. No one to get them up in the morning and cook them breakfast. No one to walk them to school or be there after the final bell. These two girls, alone, were abandoned by death. Like I said, I lived just a few doors down. My mother knew of them, but we didn't have much of a relationship except for a few highs and goodbyes. One morning, my mother heard the girls crying through the concrete walls of their small home. Deep wails were heard by all ears in our little village. Mom, known for her ability to stick her nose in things, even when they're not her own, walked over to where the girls were living. Entering quietly, she found Mao and her sister Luan laying next to their dead father. My mother did what she does best. She comforted them, and we took them as our own. The girls were afraid. Their youngest brother, Yewu, had already been missing for a number of months. They feared the thieves and village wanderers that had threatened to take their home, and even greater, the men from the city that were beginning to visit more and more frequently. These men were becoming regulars in our village, seeking out the most vulnerable, convincing many of a better life. They lead these beautiful ones on a trail of promises. But these promises are never kept, and they soon find themselves on the streets of cities waiting to be sold for the night. Who would be more prone to such a life? And the fatherless, the orphan. We took care of the girls as long as we could. With 2 new mouths to feed, plus our own, Mom and Dad didn't know where the provision was going to come from. How could my simple parents take care of us all? I remember seeing how they smiled that day in the church. I hadn't seen them smile in a long time. My mother had heard of a place for girls like Mao and Luan. Safe places where they could be protected by a house mother and house father. A place where there was food on every table. A place where they could sleep without wondering who would be there when they awoke. Homes provided for girls and boys with deepest of hurts, especially for those who didn't have a dad. I couldn't believe they had come to us. Those lost little ones had been found, not only by individuals that would love and care for them, provide food, shelter, education, and clothing, but most importantly, they had been found by the everlasting Father, and He was waiting for them with arms wide open. Now, they know the best Father of them all.
Can you ask her why it's your favorite color?
ทำไมถึงชอบสีชมพูคะ
And ask her what's her favorite thing.
Sarah's favorite color is purple. Her favorite subject is math. Her favorite animal is the butterfly. And she can't choose a favorite food because she loves them all. She's often quiet, but her spirit is strong. She is gentle in heart and yet profound in her smile. Sarah's story is one of immense courage and healing power of eternal love. Even in the face of doubt, Sarah refused to give up. And in the arms of eternal love, her life, now a beacon of hope and redemption, you can see it when she smiles. Sarah was 8 the day her uncle led her into the rice paddies. With no parents to protect her, she was constrained by an obligation of obedience. Upon reaching the edge of the fields, there was a group of men waiting for them. Sarah was tied to a tree and taken advantage of multiple times that day. She was told to remain still and silent, for men from the city were coming to get her. She had already been sold. Sarah's story did not end on that day. In fact, that day marked the beginning of something beautiful that was to unfold. Sarah had not been stripped of her courage. She wiggled and scraped, twisted and turned, and Sarah broke free that day. She crawled more than 3 kilometers to a nearby village that had recently been visited by a Rescue 1 risk assessment team. Within hours, she was safe in their arms. Sarah was safe. Sarah was placed in the home of refuge, a sanctuary for young girls who had experienced the heaviness of life. A home of refuge, it remains, as stories like Sarah's, stories of blazing courage and unending strength, find healing in the gentle embrace of a Savior's love. It is in this refuge that our Father embraces the fatherless and mends the brokenhearted. And like Sarah, new creations are born. For her first 3 weeks, Sarah slept in bed with her house mother every night. Her tears were dried and her heart remade. Love was the answer, and it was love that she received. Sarah began to color. Oh, how she loved to color. Vibrant shades of blues, greens, reds, and purples, making beauty from the blank white page before her. And so was her heart, bright shades of glory and wonder coming alive upon the blank page. Sarah had found the greatest love of all in the arms of her everlasting Father. She colors in order to share the love as it overflows from her heart. Sarah loves going to school. She loves art and loves to laugh. Sarah dreams of being a school teacher someday. She wants to inspire the hearts of little girls like she has been inspired. Sarah understands the forgiveness of her Savior, and with his help, has forgiven. Sarah belongs to a family and is walking the journey of healing alongside her best friend, Jesus. Sarah is free to dream, to laugh, to smile, to color with the vibrancy that is coming to life inside of her. Sarah is safe.
A generation is calling, devalued, searching for love, looking for an answer. How loud must they cry before their voices are heard? But there is one who is listening. He knows their worth. He sees the treasure and is undaunted by the depths. Can we see with his eyes? Can we break with his heart? For there is no place too deep. There is no darkness too thick. No story too tragic for his wounds to heal. Can we love with such love? The time has come to listen, to speak, to love, to act.
And when I think about the words "no more," they're more than just a name for the ministry. They're a battle cry. They are a declaration for a body of believers to declare no more, not on my watch. We desire to see this take root in their lives, so much so that it impacts the world around us in this generation and making a difference.
And so, the narrative of injury unfolds, with wounded lives and aching hearts, like the tears of such oysters as they wrap around the grains of sand hidden in their bosoms, so the ache is concealed. But this pain is not in vain. Layer by layer, as the tears wash the wounds, scratching into the oyster's flesh, beauty is made. We begin to see the emergence of redemption. Purity is restored with the glimmer of color. Weakness becomes strength as innocence is rebuilt and brokenness reassembled. And from the hands of our Maker, the Maker of all things beautiful, so comes His treasure. from the depths.
Ultimately, I believe that God has given no more a message to bring to the church. And that message is that the time of sitting and watching is over. We have sat far too long. We have watched the world suffer, and we have not responded. And it's time to get up. It's time to get moving. It's time to be who God's called us to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We say that over and over and over. But Jesus was very clear when he said, whatever you did to the least of these, you did as unto me.
From an injured life comes the most stunning of creations, and the darkness shall not define it any longer. From the depths, we emerge with an anthem of freedom. We, the pearls, the ones once defiled, are no longer owned, bonded, nor enslaved. Knowing our worth, we stand united and courageous, an army of the redeemed, hand in hand, rising together. We, the pearls, are found. We, the pearls, are restored. We, the pearls, are beautiful.